Your Excellency, thank you so much for this opportunity. It is indeed a privilege to have met you in Egypt and to have connected with you and to have you participate in this podcast series. To kick off our session, I would like to ask you to do a brief introduction on yourself.
Thank you very much, my dear sister. And I'm happy to be on this show, and it was indeed a pleasure meeting in Egypt. And I also want to congratulate you for the good work you are doing in promoting women, especially in business. So my name is Fatuma Ndangiza. I am from Rwanda, and currently I'm a member of Parliament of the East African Legislative Assembly. And this is an East African Parliament. And for our listeners and viewers who might know what East African Legislative Assembly is, it is a regional parliament that is comprised of currently 7 partner states, representatives, and representatives are elected by the national parliaments. And so I'm representing my country, Rwanda, in that parliament, whose main mission is to facilitate regional integration, promoting trade among our states, but also improving the lives of our people. And I have over 30 years experience advocating for women's rights and gender equality, promoting good governance in Rwanda, but also on the continent. I've also represented my country as an ambassador to Tanzania and also concurrently representing many other partner states within the Southern African region. And I also had an opportunity to serve on the African Union continent in a body called the African Peer Review Mechanism that promotes good governance on the continent on a voluntary basis. And I had an opportunity to chair the panel of eminent persons for a period of 2 years. But I also had an opportunity to engage in the rest of the continent in various missions as the chair, as a leader of election observation missions representing Africa, in Namibia, in Seychelles, and currently, as I said, in the East African Legislative Assembly. In addition to my role as a legislator, I'm also the Secretary General for Yala Women Caucus, which is a forum that brings together women legislators to champion women's women's empowerment and gender equality within the EAC, and also ensure that the laws that we pass, policies and programs are responsive to the needs of men and women, youth, and all the facets of the community. So briefly, I'll say that throughout my career, the issues of women's empowerment and gender equality and peace building have been my passion.
Your Excellency, in terms of what World Speech Day Women aims to do in providing advocacy opportunities, as well as what we set out to do as the International Women's Federation of Commerce and Industry in promoting the economic growth of women through entrepreneurial opportunities, I cannot begin to stress what a privilege it is. I thank you so much for all that you have done on behalf of all of the women out there for all that you have achieved. And of course, we would like to know a little bit more detail, in terms of the work that you have been doing. So to start off, your work in the Ministry for Women and Family Promotion during the aftermath of the Rwandan genocide. Of course, that would have been a very challenging time and a unique time for you in terms of your career path. What were some of the key challenges that you faced while working at the Ministry for Women and Family Promotion during the aftermath?
Thank you very much. And indeed, as I said, this is a humbling experience for being on this show and sharing my modest experience. In the aftermath of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, as you know, we lost over 1 million lives within a period of 100 days. And after 3 months of execution of genocide by the regime of the day, the Rwanda Patriotic Front stopped the genocide and worked with other political parties that had not participated in genocide to create a government of national transition. And I had an opportunity as a young cadre to join the Ministry of Gender. By that time, it was called the Ministry of Women and Family Promotion, but over the years, it has changed names, but I think for the better and more clarity. And you can imagine one of the challenges that we had as a ministry, and personally, as a young person working in that ministry, everything was destroyed. We were just starting from scratch. We had so many widows in the country, so many households headed by women. There were also cases of households that were headed by orphans, including girl orphans. And then there was also another phenomenon of women whose husbands had committed genocide and they were in prisons. Then we had so many returnees. These were refugees who had left the country in 1950s, including my parents. So we had like over 1 million people returning back for the first time after 30 years, resettling in the country. And then later there was also another batch of refugees who had left in 1994 after genocide, fleeing with the genocidal regime in DRC and other countries. Also about 2 million of them returning. And you can imagine, after the loss of over 1 million lives, almost every family had been affected. There was horror, there was hopelessness, there was trauma, there was mistrust in the community, among neighbors. And so you can imagine being in charge of working in a ministry where you are in charge of bringing families together whose social fabric has been devastated, giving them hope, promoting women to make sure that they can play a role in building the nation, but also in rebuilding their lives, was quite challenging. And then, of course, just like other African societies, Rwanda is also a patriarchal society. So women, in a way, were also disadvantaged in many ways. For example, we had cases, there was a challenge of having an inheritance bill, inheritance law that did not favor women. It was only boys and men who could inherit property. Women and girls were not allowed to inherit property according to that discriminatory law. And yet we had women now heading households and some girls heading households, and they were denied right to property simply because they are women. So the first agenda of the ministry was to revise that law to ensure that women and girls could have right to inheritance. And I'm happy to note After a lot of sensitization and also engaging the key partners, including female members of parliament by that time, who decided to work across party lines to have this bill passed. Today we have an inheritance law that allows women and girls to inherit property, including land. And this was very fundamental to economic rights of women, because now they could even have access to bank loans, have collateral security, and it was so important. So a lot was done, including creating the National Women Council, so that women can have now a platform where they can unite, work together, the women, address their challenges, advocate for their rights, but at the same time promote sisterhood, irrespective of where you come from. And then it was also an opportunity for them to build their capacity and be groomed for leadership, because irrespective of those challenges, we wanted women, who are now over 50% of the population, to have a fresh start and participate in national building, including decision-making bodies. So a lot was done, and I'm happy to know that despite that dark history, today Rwandan women are leading from the front. As I speak, recent election, over 63% of women in lower chamber of parliaments are women, which I think this is highest globally, but women are also active in local government. They are in all sectors of the economy. So briefly, those are some of the challenges.
To have this opportunity to have this discussion with you, as you know, in terms of promoting advocacy and having such a stellar example in you to share with the women of our continent or globally what you have done and what you have achieved and what you continue to strive to do for women's empowerment. My next question was going to be on the National Women's Council, but you've already actually answered this question, and it's quite interesting to see that you helped create this National Women's Council, and it's so that its regional and local frameworks help empower women to help them achieve political and economic parity through legal change and advocacy. I think that is absolutely incredible. I think you have already answered the question in terms of what were the initial objectives of setting up this council. What motivated you to run for a position in the East African Legislative Assembly, and what were your main goals during your first term?
The motivation to run for to be a legislator in the East African Legislative Assembly was mainly really to make a difference at a regional level, having worked for over 20 years at national level in public service, even beyond, but mainly in the executive. I also felt it was important now to make a contribution as a legislator, and this time around within the East African community. And here, as I said today, as we speak, we have East African community is composed of 8 partner states with a population that is over 300 million. So whatever we do in terms of legislation, oversight and representation, there are constituencies that over 300 million East Africans, and of course, majority of them being women and youth. So matters of intra-EAC trade, matters of growing our economies together, working together to improve the lives of our people, I thought making a contribution as a legislator would leave a huge impact compared to what I've been doing. So this was my motivation. And in the first year, of course, I did a lot. But as you know, being a first-time legislator, you learn on the job as you do. And I thought strategically I had also to aspire for leadership, to be able to have more impact. And I was a leader, a chairperson of 2 important committees in the first 5 years, one on legal rules and privileges, and then there was another one on regional affairs and conflict resolution. And these 2 important positions helped me to have a greater impact in the work of the Assembly, but also in our partner states, promoting laws, including a law on fighting corruption and also other important bills. But it was also an opportunity for me to now revive the East African, or EALA, the East African Legislative Assembly Women Caucus that had been there for some time. And again, I was elected as the Secretary General of that caucus. And it gave me an opportunity at that regional level to champion women empowerment and gender equality, not now in Rwanda, but now in the entire East African community. And I think it's always an opportunity to have these regional economic communities, because, you know, it's an opportunity to rally more than one country to a higher cause. And specifically for issues like on women empowerment and gender equality, in our oversight mandate, we hold governments accountable to implementation of, for example, our treaties, the Beijing Platform for Action, the Maputo Protocol, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially Goal 5, the AU Agenda 2063. And therefore, if you can hold governments accountable and they change by implementing the very commitments at national, regional level, then you are having a greater impact, not only to your country, but to many countries, and definitely contributing to humanity.
Thank you so much. You've actually answered my next question in how do you believe regional bodies like the East African Legislative Assembly can further support women's empowerment and gender equality? I think you've covered that. So what I would like to ask you instead is, what advice would you give to young women in Africa who aspire to be leaders in their communities and nations?
Thank you. That's a very important question. Young women, who are the youth, and of course, majority of our people on the continent, nowadays we don't say they are future leaders, they are leaders of today and tomorrow. And it's high time that they pick interest in leadership, because I, for one, in the past, I was not so much interested in politics. And of course, leadership is not only about politics. You can be a leader in the business sector, you can be a leader as civil society actor, you can be a leader as a student in academia, you can be a community leader, you can be a leader at every level. So I want to challenge them to pick interest in leadership so that they can be able to influence and change their societies for the better. Having passion is critical. You cannot drive anything if you don't have a passion for it. Let them be the best they can. Be yourself, but be the best that you can and grow where you are. I always believe at every level you can make an impact. And there is always a saying of being a 360 leader. So wherever you are, you can still make an impact and grow. But of course, hard work is important. Perseverance, and I always believe in capacity building. It's important, building our capacity, yearning for knowledge, and also growing all the time. And of course, you also have to I talked about patience, but I also believe in humility and putting the service of the people above your own interest. So I think those are a few tips that I think have worked for me, and I hope it can also work for young people. And of course, I want to challenge our generation, the senior women leaders, to take time and mentor the young women so that we prepare them for leadership. Recently, in July, we launched the first ever East African Community Women Intergenerational Dialogue, bringing young women, especially from colleges, universities, but also from other professions, to interact with senior women leaders. We had a 3-day interaction. And what came out was many young people they wish there could be mentorship program in leadership. But all the women, whether young or senior, they are all interested also in the social media platform to amplify their voices, to be able to have greater outreach. But unfortunately, many don't, including us, we are not so good at using these platforms, and yet there are opportunities for women. So I hope maybe this is an area we can think about how we can collaborate, being so strong in that area. And in fact, we are even thinking, so this intergenerational dialogue is going to be an annual event. And the good thing is that because we are not able to bring everyone in Arusha, you also use the virtual for those who are in partner states. And it was quite interesting to see how you have all the countries participating without their physical presence, and how it cuts, the way it cuts on costs of organizing meetings, tickets, and all this. So this is an area where we shall need your support. Galvanizing digital technology to advance women's leadership in Africa.
I think you've just opened up the way for further collaboration and given us the next step forward. Your Excellency, I feel so privileged for having had this opportunity to have you share all that you have with us. I thank you so much for being such an inspiration to us, for leading the way in the way that you have, for setting the example that you have for the rest of us to follow, and more importantly, for taking the time to share this with us today. I do hope that we will continue to engage and explore other ways in which we can continue to make a difference, and that you can guide us in doing so. For many of us, we are here, we are still learning. We look up to role models like you. And I just want to thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my dear sister, for the opportunity. You inspire me. I've been looking at your work. So it's a two-way learning. We keep on learning. And thank you for having me on this show. And I look forward for future engagement as we continue to promote women in our continent. Thank you very much.